America is under a new president. What effect will that have on global politics, particularly Israel? And here to discuss this very complex question with us today, our good friend Avi Lipkin. Avi, welcome back to Prophecy Watchers.
Great to be with you.
You know, Avi has produced a new DVD, and we're going to be discussing loosely the content, but more than that, we're going to be talking about the effect of politics on global developments. You know, and let me just start out by saying that in a recent State of the Union, it was not the State of the Union message, but it sure looked like one to me. Donald Trump stood before Congress and made a flat-out, bold statement, Avi. He said, "I'm going to wipe out ISIS, period, end of comment." Well, nobody else has spoken in terms like that. We now have a president who speaks in very short sentences, each one having a period at the end. And you're commenting on that development and what it might mean to Israel.
Okay, well, the United States faces two types of threat, as I've been saying for 27 years, two types of threats from Islam. One is what we call the moderate Islam, or the immigration, taking over America over the decades, or maybe over a century. Then the other one is violence. And, officially, even the Islamic countries are against violence because it threatens them too. The chickens come home to roost. So ISIS very clearly is a threat to the United States. And I believe it's a threat to Saudi. I think ISIS, which is the prodigal son, and they're going to come back to threaten Saudi and other countries as well. And I think it's fair to say, among serious world leaders, that they support President Trump in the war against ISIS, even though the vast majority of volunteers who go to fight in the ranks of ISIS are from Saudi, and the support financially. Now, President Trump has promised to make America great again. I think, there's Bill Clinton used to say, former President Clinton used to say, "Hey, is the economy stupid?" If we're looking at the economy, then America has to find a way, firstly, to avoid World War III with China or with Russia, and to try to find a way to continue working with what they call the so-called moderate Muslims. Now, you know me. I don't believe that there is such a thing as a moderate Islam, but let's talk about the peaceful, at least for now, Islam versus the ISIS or Al-Qaeda violent Islam. Violent Islam is not good for business. Peaceful invasion of the United States by millions of Muslims, that's good for business. And as a matter of fact, I just heard yesterday that there's someone important in New York who is suing President Trump because he's claiming that the travel ban is harming the economy of New York City and New York State because of the universities, which are losing potential students who otherwise would come, and that would raise the financial status of the universities.
Good for business. Let's talk about that phrase.
Right.
That caught my ear. Let's talk about the variety of ways in which the Islamic insurgence here is good for business.
Well, the greatest motor for economic development is the building of homes. When you have immigrants coming into the United States, that's good for the economy. Immigration is good. I've always been on record as saying that I support opening up the borders more to Latin American and other Christian countries because they have basically the same faith in God and Bible. Messiah is a Jew from Israel who speaks Hebrew. And America needs the immigrants for its growing economy. So people who have no knowledge of Islam say, yes, same applies to Islam too. The problem is that they have a rival system and they want to replace Christianity, which they consider bankrupt and coming apart, as a system that has to be quickly terminated by Islamic invasion. House building, they said there was a bubble many years ago. There's no bubble. Houses are being snapped up. And if you bring in millions of Muslims from the Middle East, that's good for home building.
You just said millions of Muslims.
Right.
Let's estimate numbers here.
Okay, well, firstly, I want to return a little bit to my earlier life. I moved to Israel in 1968 when I was 19 years old. 1970, I was in Israel already a year and a half, and the statistics that I received told me that there were 100,000 Muslims in America. Today, I believe there are 20 to 30 million Muslims in America. And the reason I say that is because if you remember the fall of the Shah of Iran, President Reagan brought in millions of Shiite Iranians who either fled for their lives, came to America, or were beheaded by the Khomeini regime. Some estimates put it at 9 million Shiite Iranians. Jews are 6 million in America. So Jews are no longer number two. America, and Obama's right in his inaugural address of 2009, America is no longer a Judeo-Christian country. America today is a Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu country. Because the Jews are 6 million. The Shiites are 9 million, as I said. The Sunni Immigrants Association claims 7 million. This is years ago. I think there are a lot more. So that's 16 million. Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, they claim 4 million. So right there you have 20 million. And that's without the Somalis, without the Turks, without the Indonesians, without the Muslims from the Balkans, Albanian and Bosnian.
So you're saying 20 to 30 million.
Right.
Somewhere in there.
Right. Now, according to law enforcement, 10% are terrorists. 90% of the Muslims in America are peacekeeping, law-abiding citizens, according to law enforcement. And I've been talking about this for a long time. Now, one of the things I want to emphasize, and people are also wondering, where did you get the numbers from? So, and we haven't spoken about this. I've been doing shows with you almost 25 years.
That's right.
My second book, Christian Revival for Israel's Survival, I tell about Duke University in North Carolina. And this is in the 1980s. They get a cablegram or a telephone call or a letter from some very rich oil sheik in Borneo or somewhere in Indonesia in the Far East. And he says, I'm coming to visit you, and I'm giving you, we have a lot of appreciation for Duke University, and I'm going to give you a check, no strings attached, for $23 million. Now, universities are not nonprofit organizations. They're businesses. And so what are they going to say? No strings attached, 23 million, bring it on. So he comes, they make a big party to honor him. And of course, he has a dedication speech. And during the dedication speech, he says, we really, really appreciate this university very much. And to show our appreciation, we'll give you another $23 million if you establish an Arabic language and Islamic studies chair at this university. So what's the university going to say?
Oh, yeah.
Bring it on.
Bring it
so
on.
now the kitty is up to 46 million. And then this man says, this Muslim man says, and we know you Americans don't have a clue about Islam, so we will send you our professors, who are basically Islamic missionaries, and we will send you 500 young male Muslim students a year, which means by the end of 4 years, you have 500 freshmen, 500 sophomores, 500 juniors, 500 seniors. So you have 2,000 young Muslim men, hot-blooded young men, boys will be boys, Oh, yeah. And they will tutor Americans in Arabic and Islamic studies. And they will pay full room, board, and tuition, which is a lot of money. So Duke University and the whole area is very much flourishing. And then they marry the American girls.
Right.
The American women, Jewish, Christian, atheists, whatever, become Muslim baby-producing factories. And the women basically, either they convert or at least the children are Muslims. Then after 2 years, they get passports. When these Muslim men get passports, then they can bring in their parents and their brothers and their sisters, and the growth becomes exponential. Multiply, so it comes out to about $100 million. Multiply that by 10, let's say, 10 universities. So you have immediately 500 times 10 is 5,000. But if you multiply this by 1,000 universities, and we know that almost every university in the US and Canada is now getting this kind of funding from Islamic countries, and the Muslims have a plan. It's not just Saudi. Indonesia, Saudi, all these countries sit down and they divide up the world, and how to conquer it by peaceful means, by immigration, by sending Muslims into these countries. And we spoke here about the invasion
Right.
as a result of the Arab Spring. And so President Trump has a very, very tough job, because he has received a situation in which you already have between 20 to 30 million Muslims here, and a lot more are on the way. The situation in Syria will never be solved. Never. Even if the caliphate is destroyed, it'll never be solved, because you have so many Sunnis in Syria who want to kill the Shiites, and Shiites who want to kill the Sunnis. You have this in Lebanon, you have this in Iraq, you have this in Yemen. Even if President Trump vets all these people, eventually, there'll be a few thousand terrorists, but the rest, they're starving. They have to get out of there. They have no life there. They come here.
So we know that Islam is inimical to Judaism.
And Christianity.
And Christianity, and it has a game plan.
Right.
And you've talked about this for years.
Yes.
But people don't seem to be listening.
Right.
And now we have a president who stood up, and I'm going to hold up your last book here, Islamic Rivalry, ISIS and Iran. A president who stood up and made a definitive statement. A very short, brief, to-the-point statement. I'm going to get rid of, eliminate, exterminate ISIS. And when he did, that probably sent shockwaves through the Islamic kingdoms in various places.
Yes, but like I said before, ISIS is inimical also to the kingdoms and these regimes in the Middle East, which are dysfunctional. They're not working out. And I wanted to give you something also looking to the future. Mm-hmm. You are now seeing in the news that Turkey, and this has been going on for many years.
I've been following this.
Yeah.
The contest between Turkey and the Netherlands.
Not only Turkey, also with Angela Merkel, because there was a problem in Germany as well.
Yes.
And the Turks want to join the European Union. And I've said this before. The European Union today is comprised of 300 million, what used to be Christians, but they're not Christians in Europe anymore. They're neo-pagans. 300 million, let's call them non-Muslims. 300 million non-Muslims, 50 million Muslims. So you say to yourself, so 50 million Muslims, 300 million non-Muslims, not a big deal. If Turkey joins the European Union, automatically 70 million Anatolian Turks join the European Union, which brings it up to 120. But not only that, you have now 200 million former Soviet Turks, Turkic peoples from the 6 republics, and they're all entitled to Turkish passports.
Wow.
So that means if Turkey, God forbid, joins the European Union, 200 million Turkic Muslims from the former Soviet Union, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, are entitled to go to Turkey, pick up Turkish passports, and move to Europe. So potentially what it means is you go from 300 million non-Muslims to 50 that are there, 270 from Turkey and the Islamic republics of Russia, and you're talking about 320 million Muslims versus 300 million non-Muslims. Europe is a Muslim continent the moment the Turks join the European Union. Now, you have people in Holland, you have people in Germany, you have people in other countries that understand the problem, say, we don't want the Turks, because they're not Christian, and even if they weren't Christian, the important thing is that they're not going to take it over Europe for Islam. Now, what's the problem here? The Turks are blackmailing the Europeans and saying, if you don't allow us to become members of the European Union, you know what we're going to do? We're going to send all these refugees, millions of them. Millions of them. There are 6 million refugees in Syria displaced. We're going to ship them all into Europe. Nobody can stop that. And so the Europeans are, I don't want to say they're naive. I think the Europeans are waking up. One of the reasons why England voted to leave the EU, it's called Brexit.
Absolutely.
And I think it's also one of the reasons why Trump won. I call that Amarexit. So you have Brexit and Amarexit.
Wow.
Putin, and the media is attacking Putin. Putin also doesn't like this refugee business. Putin is a nationalist, it's true, but he's not a communist. Putin is a Christian. He's a Russian, Greek Orthodox Christian, very devout. And I have these YouTubes of Putin going to Greek islands or different monasteries to be blessed by the Greek Orthodox priests. This guy is a very devout Christian. He's also a very, very strong nationalist. Just as Trump is a very strong American nationalist, and he's a Christian also.
And he's being supported by capitalist Russian oligarchs.
For now. By the way, I have a concern about that because I'm afraid that the oligarchs are going to cut a deal with people in the European Union to eliminate Putin and then pull out of Syria, which means the destruction of the Christians in the Middle East. And then Israel has to come in. And then Israel's borders grow, according to Deuteronomy 11, verse 24.
So let me take you back to this subject that I'm holding in my hand. Avi Lipkin speaks on Donald Trump and the election and the possible consequences of that. Let's go back now, having laid this whole picture out. What's going on?
Okay, now one of the things he said, I think maybe the most important thing he said is make America great again.
Yes.
To make America great again, you cannot go to war with Islam, with Islamic countries. Terrorism, yes, and that's in the interest of the Islamic countries too. You cannot go to war against China. You cannot go to war against Russia. War will destroy everything, and it'll kill billions of people with the weaponries that exist now. And if you want the American economy to really succeed, you have to find a way, they call it modus vivendi, to bring in the Islamic petrodollars, continue working peacefully with the Chinese.
A method of staying alive, modus vivendi.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's one of the reasons why I believe Trump has an economic plan, and he will mobilize the Arab world, the Muslim world, to work with the United States, which means that you have to bring in more Muslim immigration into America, which means you're going to have another housing boom in this country that this country has never experienced before.
You know, I don't have to tell you this, but the whole Bible, Old and New Testament, speaks of a latter-day global conflagration.
Right.
We haven't seen it yet. We've seen
Correct.
World Wars I and II, which were horrific.
Correct.
But the big one that's described, for example, I'm looking at Isaiah 24 here, and that has 23 verses, that chapter, and it's horrific. You can't read this believingly and eat lunch after you read it. You're too sick. It's terrible. And everything you're describing it seems, in my feeble method of analysis, to indicate that we're getting close to some kind of a huge global conflagration.
Okay. You know, I'm a student of history.
Yes, I know that.
And I used to hate the Germans. Today I love the Germans. I hate Nazism,
Yeah.
but I love German people. I used to hate the Russians during the Cold War. Today I love the Russians. I hate communism. I love China. I hate communism. I shouldn't say that because I have a missions trip coming up to China. I have to go to China soon. You know what they said to me? The people in China, the Christians, they said, we're going to set up meetings with the Christian pastors in China who are being persecuted by the Chinese government, but we're also going to set you up meetings with Chinese officials who are not Christian, because China is so threatened by the Muslims of the west of China, the Uyghurs and others, and they have the passport of China. They can go anywhere in China, and they are causing a tremendous threat to the Chinese economy. They can bring the Chinese economy down. They can also do it to America. They can do it to Europe also. This Islamic terrorist threat is so great. I don't know if you heard about this. I mean, I get emails. You can't believe every email, but I believe this email. I have to read it between the lines. It said, China invades Afghanistan. Now, did you hear anything about that? It wasn't in the media.
No.
But I understand it. If you look at the map of Afghanistan, there's this little finger protruding from Afghanistan northeast. Finger. I think it's the Khyber Pass. Into China.
Very famous geographical strait.
Very important place. It's part of Afghanistan.
Yes.
And I believe that's what China invaded, because they probably are being shot at every day by the Taliban and the Al-Qaeda, who hate the Chinese for being pagans.
Yeah.
And so the Chinese said, you know, like the Israelis, when you have these attacks against Israel by Hamas, Israel responds. So the Chinese responded against what is a natural behavior against an attack by these Muslim aggressors, these Muslim terrorists. So the Muslims are threatening China. The Muslims are threatening Russia. In my book, Islamic Rivalry, I talk about the Russians, who have been Christians since 995 AD, when the Russian Orthodox Church was established. The Russians have been fighting the Turks, the Muslims, for 1,000 years. Americans can't grasp what is a war with another nation or another religion 1,000 years. America has from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. And, you know, like, that's basically the only contact, the only war that America had with these Muslim Libyan Barbary pirates.
Right.
Since then, America went back to its business, you know, and everyone stayed out of everyone else's business until the decision was made to invade the United States in 1970. And my wife, Rachel, picked up broadcasts where they were saying, even if it takes 150 years, we're going to make America a Muslim country. Now they say, we were wrong. It's not going to take 150 years. It's only going to take 30 years.
So back to Donald Trump. What's going to happen? That is to say, and you have a DVD now in which you speculate about some of the future developments that we're going to see, because we have a totally different personality now in the executive branch. We have a type A, if you will, executive. Maybe for the first time in a long time, we have an executive in the executive branch. What's going to happen? What's your perspective, and what can you tell people that is in your new DVD? What are you going to be emphasizing?
I believe two things. I believe we will be seeing more of the what they call the moderate Islam, the peaceful Islam coming in. But they're very devout Muslims. They just think in means which are not violent, like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Jabhat al-Nusra.
Right.
So you'll see that coming in. You'll see millions of Muslims coming in. You will see money coming in. The Saudis and the others are going to pay for the housing boom. You know, Wall Street jumped when Trump was elected from 18,000 to 21,000.
Right.
I predict it's going to go up to 25,000. And this is a tremendous boost to the economy. Okay, where's the fly in the ointment? The terrorists are here already. I'll give you an example. In Italy took in all these tens of thousands of immigrants, or hundreds of thousands of immigrants. I don't even know how many there. And instead of saying, thank you, Italy, ISIS says, these Italians are stupid. We sent 4,000 of our vanguard Al-Qaeda or ISIS terrorists into Rome. They're going to blow up the Vatican, kill the Pope, and destroy Rome.
And by the way, they're educated in guerrilla warfare.
And they're coming, as the caliphate gets defeated and shut down, the survivors are filtering into European, American countries, and Arab and Slavic countries.
So essentially, they're holding back a major invasion until the time is right or someone gives a signal.
Right. And the United States now, because, see, under President Obama, there were terrorist attacks by individuals. You know, Fort Hood and Orlando and other things. But it wasn't a 9/11 type attack in magnitude. The moment you get rid of a pro-Islamic president, then what you have now is a nationalist and a Christian, and so no holds barred. And so the terrorist Muslims who are in America, they could be only 10%. They could be only 1%. 19 guys shut down the U.S. on 9/11. So America faces, I believe, impending terrorist attacks, which, of course, the Saudis are frowning upon. They have an investment in the United States. Saudis don't want to see their investment go down the drain if America's economy collapses. And so personally, I don't think that it'll collapse. I think America will be witnessing a great Christian revival, which will be good for the Jews also, by the way. The question then is, though, will these terrorists go after the Jews, which they have promised to do, and will they send home the Jews and Christian spouses to Israel, which is the reason I'm creating a Judeo-Christian party.
And more about that on another program.
Yes.
Because that's a whole story unto
Correct.
itself. The thing that I like about you, you get around. You go all over the world. You talk to people. You have a sense of intelligence in the spy counter spy sense of that word.
My wife. And others.
She keeps track of you everywhere you go. I know, but you and your wife have been involved with watching these people that we're talking about and educating yourself as to their modes of operation. And you're very wise in those ways. And that's why I like to hear you talk about these things, because it gives me some sense of where we are. But in another sense, all bets are off since we have a new Type A president.
Right.
He's out there saying, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And it's going to be interesting.
We have a president now who says, feeling lucky, make my day, like Clint Eastwood, okay, Dirty Harry. But the problem is, you've got terrorists in this country who are also saying, feeling lucky, make my day. So unless Trump can actually embrace those Saudi and other, again, I hate to use the word moderate Muslims, but the ones who have too much to lose, and use their help to defeat the extremists, who are bad for everyone, except the extremists. Actually, they're bad for the extremists too, because the extremists are going to die in the end.
Avi Lipkin, he's got a DVD that you'll find quite interesting, in which he goes into more detail about the possible effects of the Trump presidency. We have this DVD and another by Avi, which we'll be discussing on another program, and this one is called Israel's Bible Block Party. This is really fascinating because Avi is doing something in Israel that is very, very close to completion. Been talking about it for a long time. We have these two DVDs, and as a package in our online bookstore, just go to prophecywatchers.com, hit the online bookstore button, and scroll down to Avi Lipkin, and you'll find this package. And by the way, if you buy these two DVDs, Donald Trump and the Bible Block, you get Bill Koenig's Eye to Eye absolutely free. Buy two, get one free. In the package you'll find in our online bookstore. And of course, we carry all of Avi's books. And this one I would recommend. It'll help you understand a lot better what's happening today. Avi, one final word.
Well, like I said before, we are in anticipation of, in my opinion, of more immigrants, Muslim immigrants coming in, a flood, millions of them, the American economy growing together with that. But at the same time, the fanatic zealot terrorists are also in position here in the United States. They are here already. We've spoken about this in many shows that we've done together. And when President Trump says to the American people that they don't have a clue, I understand exactly what he means.
Pray for Avi. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and pray for America.
Amen.
We need that prayer. I'm Gary Stearman. You keep watching. We are. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.